Welcome, Savvy Seeker, to the Spiritual Phoenix podcast. This is your audio oasis and paranormal portal. You can experience legendary guests, thought-provoking tarot readings, astonishing astrological forecasts, and exposure to ideas intent on igniting your unlimited inspiration. Subscribe today to keep your fire burning. One last thing, you are encouraged to reach out and ask questions. Become a part of the show. Now, please enjoy today's episode. All right, welcome everybody. Thank you for tuning in to episode 4. We have Stefanie Caponi with us. Stefanie, first off, hello. Secondly, will you tell everybody what we're doing?
Hi, Ross. Yes. Welcome, everybody. We are going through the tarot, the 78 cards. This is the Fool's Guide to Tarot, where each week we pick a major arcana card and we talk about the energy of it. And then we also talk about its corresponding tips or minor arcana cards. So this week we are talking about the Empress and the threes.
Okay, I'm excited about that. Real quick, just to recap what we talked about last week, it was the High Priestess and the twos. And that was a lot of fun. Hopefully everybody can go back and listen to that. And if they have questions, reach out to us. We're definitely available to talk if you have questions. The links for that will be in the show notes. Anything that you want to add about last week's episode, Stefanie?
Like you said, last week we talked about the High Priestess and the twos. Through tarot, we build on numerology. And so we started with 0, the Fool, with the Magician being 1, the individual, and the High Priestess is 2, which is our intuition, but also the becoming of ourself and others, which then brings us into the 3. And the 3 is a lot about our personal power and our creativity. And a lot of times you're bringing community in.
I like that. So let me ask you this question before we dive into the card on a deeper level. As we've talked about in the previous episodes, all of these cards build upon each other, like you had just touched on as well. So the 3 then has the element of the Fool kind of in the openness, the creative potential of the Magician, and then this balanced, receptive intuition of the High Priestess. So she's kind of a badass is what I'm getting at.
Absolutely. And obviously, when in traditional decks you have the Empress, and it's always, not always, but most of the time a woman is pictured, but there's no gender in the Empress. The Empress is feminine energy.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily representative of a woman.
I think that's a good distinction. And just in case people aren't familiar, everybody, regardless of sexual identity, has both masculine and feminine energy within them. It's just expressed differently in different amounts, blah, blah, blah.
Exactly. So in the Empress, we're talking about divine feminine energy. And so for men, women, or however you identify, you're just tapping into the feminine energy that exists in everybody. And feminine energy is receptive energy.
And I guess real quick, since we're talking about the energy, the counterpart to that, or masculine energy, would be like the actionable energy or creative energy.
Exactly.
Okay. So now that we've kind of cleared that up and said that it's not about sexual stuff, it's more about the energetic principle of it, what does the Empress represent to you?
The Empress is she's associated with the planet Venus. So there's love and beauty and harmony, and like we said, that divine feminine energy. So there's a creative energy here. So the creation, like, she allows and creates, and she gestates and births. So there's a lot of like whether you're going to birth like a child or if you're birthing a project, like this is all encompassed in that Venus energy.
Okay, I like that. So what does the number 3 represent on a larger scale? In numerology, rather.
So in numerology, the 3 is associated with community. It's associated with your personal power. If you follow the chakra system, it's associated with your solar plexus. And so a lot of our, that gut feeling, our personal power, our ego, our creative life force all comes from that area. So 2019 is a 3-year. So we're actually in an Empress year.
Something else about the solar plexus chakra or navel chakra is that it's about like sense of self in a big way. Tying it into 2019, that would to me would say that it's like a very good year to reinforce your sense of self and really get in touch with who you are on a deep level. And tying it in with the associations of Venus, like really begin to love yourself, kind of recognize how beautiful your existence is, be open to better things coming, and then creating the type of life that you would really want to see. And understanding that you have to be receptive to some things, but you actively have to take some action on things too.
Exactly. And I feel like the action to take is in your collaborations and knowing that this kind of actually is my description of the 3 of Pentacles, is knowing that what you offer and bring to the table is a piece of the puzzle that only you can bring. And kind of what we talked about before is like in a previous episode of being able to know that there's room for everybody. And that everybody has a special, unique perspective and special gifts that they came into this lifetime with. And the more we collaborate together, the more we can amplify that energy and do some actual good in the world.
Yeah, I think that's a very important perspective because there's almost this concept in our current culture that being a Renaissance individual or knowing all these various facets is what you have to do. And there's definitely some benefit to it, but beginning to find people with a particular skill set that complement each other so you can all achieve a group goal is really how we're going to progress in like a big way. So I think that that's incredibly important to point out. So thank you for bringing that up. Let's get into the artwork that you have for the Empress in the Moon Void Tarot, if you don't mind.
So my Empress, she's definitely based in nature, and she definitely has kind of that same Venus element. A big thing with the Moon Void Tarot and with the Empress and with just the entire tarot journey is being okay with who you are and not other people's idea of you. So this is our beauty on a superficial level. So like you can see, she always is wearing glasses, and just like on a stupid thing, like growing up my whole life, people are like, oh, you're so pretty, you should take your glasses off, or you should wear contacts, you're hiding yourself. And it's like, I'm not. I don't need to go to extreme lengths to make myself fit into society's ideal of beauty. That was the point of my Empress card, is you can really feel into your own beauty and your own feminine energy and your own creation powers without compromising who you are.
Let me ask you this, because I'm getting, I think I'm understanding it right. So most beauty is actually refined from how you perceive yourself in a real way, and then not necessarily needing other people's approval of that. Beauty is kind of inwardly understood than outwardly reflected.
Yes.
There's a quote, I forget who it's by. I think it's John Mayer. And he was talking about being a beautiful person, about how it's more about your acts and all of this stuff. And he's like, otherwise, it's just congratulations about your face. Have you ever seen that quote?
I have.
That quote's amazing. Sorry, that was my little tangent.
That's okay.
No, I definitely think that that's important, to honor yourself. And for me, like the honor yourself aspect is really well articulated in the Shaman Tarot, Empress, because it's this woman really just sitting in this divine light, and there's all of this green around her. And again, green is relative to the heart chakra, and it's like really sitting in her love for herself. And then there's all of these there's like a wolf and a crane, and they're both like this pure white element. So to me, that's kind of like tapping into purity of mind, purity of the material world in the sense of the wolf, and like purity of pack. I don't know. It's just a very uplifting card, but it's about honoring yourself as an individual.
Yes.
How does that sit with you?
Absolutely. I feel like that kind of ties in perfectly to what I was saying and what I feel the energy of the card is. And I feel like in society, that's what a lot, like everybody is really moving towards, a greater sense of inclusivity. Like even in advertising, you're seeing a lot more body types and skin tones and non-binary genders represented, where before it was like we have these like ideal standards. And I feel like the Empress is about like breaking that glass ceiling of like, no, you're perfect the way you are.
Mm-hmm.
What I tell people is, you know, we are spiritual beings having a human experience. So when you decided to incarnate, you came into this body for a reason. This is the perfect vessel to complete the mission.
I think that's a very important perspective, and it goes into the concept of if you value yourself on this deep level and value who you are, like the core of your being, nobody can really reject you because it's really about them. It's not about you. And then you don't need to seek approval because you've approved yourself.
Exactly. This definitely is a card about, like you said, loving yourself and then allowing other people in to love you as well.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to move on to the pips or the minors, or do you want to talk more about the High Priestess?
No, let's move into the minors. I think we've done the Empress justice.
Yeah, we've done our due diligence. So moving into the minors, I'm going to start off with what I would perceive people's least favorite card to be. Three of Swords. Yeah.
Right there with you, my friend. I was like, let's go right to like the heart of darkness here.
Yeah, right. We'll get this out of the way, and then we can move into the more pleasant ones. So hold your card up again, if you don't mind, please. I know nobody can see this because they're listening, but I'm just curious. I really like your artwork on yours.
Yeah.
So what does this mean to you outside of the traditional? I mean, give the traditional meaning as well, but like, what's your perspective? So
with the Three of Swords, what really struck me as interesting, because it's swords, so it's mental activity and words. So it's always like a card of heartbreak and pain, but it's not about like somebody physically harming you. It's about the words. And my teachers, when I was studying in depth, they said that the first sword is the wound that comes from outside of yourself. So it's somebody saying something about you. And then the other two are the stories that you've told yourself and built around that wound.
Looking at that from a different perspective too, it's almost like that whole wound is even further supported by your story. So if you start at like the 1 point and then it fractals off into the two. So it's like once you kind of remove those stories, the whole foundation of that wound kind of falls apart and you're able to heal from it.
Exactly. So like a lot of people see this card and they get so bummed out, and it's like, you know what? when this card comes, it's like, you have an opportunity to shift the story
Mm-hmm.
and take those swords out and heal.
Yeah, I think that's a very positive way to look at it. And for me, in my own personal experience, and maybe the people listening at home can relate, and maybe you can relate as well. When I really look at the times that I was hurt in a relationship, it was my thoughts of who these other people really were. And then the evidence of who they actually were was revealed to me. And that hurt me. But then when I begin to get into alignment or understanding of who they really are, those actions don't hurt as much because it's more so my projection or my thought of them.
Kind of when we were speaking about the Two of Swords last week, about protecting ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
the mind will spin out of control to protect us from being hurt. And so a lot of times that perpetuates an old story. Because it's easy to live with a wound you're comfortable having. Like if somebody stabs you, that hurts. But then after a while, you can live with that sword inside of you. But if somebody pulled it out, that would hurt worse than it going in.
Damn, that was a very morbid explanation, but it really drives home the concept. I ain't mad, but I'm just saying, wow, that was really heavy. No, I like that. I like that perspective though, because it is true. I think that one of the areas where a lot of people suffer, and I know that I did myself personally for a long time, was getting really comfortable with a certain level of misery, because doing the necessary footwork and pulling that sword out was far more painful than it was just to kind of sit with it. I learned how to maneuver with the sword in me. So it was like, it was all good, but taking it out, I didn't know how to function. I really like that insight, even though it was morbid. No, I'm just messing with you.
Sorry, I'm a Scorpio moon. I'm very dark.
I got a bunch of Scorpio in my chart too, so I get it. I'm just being prissy.
That's fine. You're allowed. I do think it's important for people to know that healing can feel a little bit painful at first, but getting through that, then you can go on the rest of the journey. Like this is a 3, it's a low number.
Mm-hmm.
So it's still kind of the beginning stages, where I guess you could also say that the effects of that wound haven't crystallized yet. There's an opportunity.
That's a good way to look at it. Yeah, it's kind of dealing with it gives you the ability to clean out the wound before it becomes infected and really festers. So it's good to just kind of nip it in the bud and get it done. This is the one that I have in the Shaman Tarot, and it is this person kind of projecting a different persona than what they really are, and it shows them sucking the life out of this flower, is how I perceive it.
Wow.
And there's this like sickly green aura around them, like this unhealthy heart. And for me, that kind of is where a lot of the wounds from the Three of Swords originates, this sickly, unhealthy heart. And it, kind of this approach to love based upon ego more so than anything. And also on this concept of, and this is going to sound harsh, but sometimes we love people for who they are to us, not who they actually are. So it's like
so true.
And really, like when I began to understand that in my own life, that I didn't necessarily love these people, I love them as extensions of my own ego. That was painful in all sorts of different facets, because then it really drove home the concept of being the creator of my own wounds in my heart and having to take like responsibility for that, which was heavy.
Absolutely. It reminds me of that quote, hurt people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's definitely true. If you're walking around with swords in you, you're going to stick swords in other people.
Exactly. And that goes back to the concept that I've spoken of in every single card. Your quality of life is a direct correlation with your interior world.
Oh yeah.
So if you are wondering how you're doing, take a look at your relationships. Take a look at your environment, because everything outside of you is a reflection of everything inside of you. And if you want anything to change, it's not an external thing, it's an internal thing.
That's like a hermetic principle, or it's even reflected in the concept of as above, so below, as within, so without.
Absolutely. So each card, it comes back to that.
That's a really good perspective. So since we just kind of talked about that, and you had said that this is about kind of the internal world, why don't we dive into the internal world of the Three of Cups? I think that's a good transition. How do you feel about that?
That sounds great.
Okay. Kick us down with your wisdom.
You know what? The Three of Cups is a very, very interesting card, because it can seem like a very simple card about community and having fun and being around people. And this is where it gets a little deeper, where I tell people, take a look at who you spend your time with, who fills your cup and who drains it. You know, as humans, part of something that we're all intrinsically built with is the need to be around other people. And showing up as a good, solid friend means a lot of different things. And so I feel like if you're looking to improve the quality of your friendships, take a look at what you actually need. What do you look for in a friend? And then how you can embody that.
That's a really, really good perspective. I've heard the quote, you are the 3 people or 5 people you surround yourself with the most. And I think that that's incredibly true. And not to delve too much into my personal life, but like looking at my past and seeing where I ended up in certain things, it was a direct relation of that. And now looking where I want to go with the future and being really selective of who I invest energy in and who I invest energy in building friendships and connections with. It's been incredibly important. And it definitely has an impact on your emotions as well. Because if you're investing energy in people that are uplifting, that are progressing their lives and really working on developing themselves in a deep, rich way, that's going to help you hold yourself accountable and lift you to another level. And then that'll help them do the same. There's like this reflectiveness of these ideals and beliefs. It's like getting in this vibrational alignment where it keeps raising the frequency. Without getting too new age, I'm going to stop there.
No, but it's like you took the words out of my mouth. It's exactly right. It's, you know, another thing that you could look at with Three of Cups is energy is contagious. So if you're going outside and being very low vibe, kind of like the hurt people, your mood, people are like, oh, are 6 signs that you're an empath. Hello, we are all empaths. That is a sense that every single person has. So your mood, like, we're basically just walking into each other's energy fields. And so you have to really protect your own energy and know that whatever you're carrying into a situation is gonna, either raise the vibration or lower it. And if you don't feel like you're at an energetic place that you're going to raise the vibration, you can't go into something looking to feed off of other people's energy, because that makes you an energy vampire. And we all have to be accountable for the ways that we look to feed off of other people's energy.
Yeah, I think that's a really good perspective. Be mindful of people who have dusty ass vibes, but then also be mindful of yourself when you have dusty ass vibes. And it's not to say that you can't express when you're going through difficult times, but it's really about the attitude that you have in which you approach it. Again, to tie this back to my own personal experience, I'm involved in some groups where it's about personal development. And one of the concepts is you don't go in and just kind of like dump on people. You kind of go in and you share what you're going through, but you also filter it through the lens of some of the resources or tools that you've built so you can be empowering and say, I'm going through this, but I understand that I can get through this because of these skills or these tools. And then it's like, that actually makes people feel good. They're like, oh, okay. And then it gives other people who might be not as far along hope.
Right. And it helps you kind of pull yourself out of the muck instead of dragging everybody down with you.
Absolutely. There's another saying that I've heard, you'll pull people down people will pull you down before you can lift them up. And that's incredibly important to remember. Like, all of us are treading water. All of us have stuff on our plate. You got to be responsible for you.
Exactly. Like, it's super cheesy, but I always, like, with Three of Cups, like, another like thing that comes to mind is like, your vibe attracts your tribe.
Mm-hmm. That is kind of cheesy, but
it is super cheesy. I don't care.
No, it is true. I've heard somebody say water seeks its own level, and that's especially true because of the cups.
Yeah.
Like,
that is a less cheesy way of putting that same phrase.
Yeah. I've definitely said the vibe attracts your tribe thing before, so don't. I mean, obviously we're talking, so I've said shit like that because I'm part of your tribe, apparently. But like, that is true. Water seeks its own level, and if you are sick of the people that you're hanging around with, because I've caught this a lot in new age circles. Oh, this person is so and so. It's like, or they're such and such a way. It's like, that's because of you, buddy. That's because of you. Step up your game. But yeah, I feel like we've really covered the concept of that, and I've taken us off on a tangent.
That's okay. All right, let's move on to the Three of Wands.
Okay. Why don't you lead us off with that?
So there's always like a sense of longing and over eagerness in the Three of Wands. Because it's fire energy. There's three of them, so it feels like you've got the elements and you're ready to go, but you're waiting for a green light.
Okay. I like that concept. Hold up your card a little more so I can see it more clearly. So okay, it's somebody with like a path ahead of them and the open sky.
So it's like a rocky beach with like a piece of driftwood that has like 3 shoots off of it. So the driftwood is the wands. And it's overlooking the beach or the water, the ocean.
Okay, I see that more clearly now.
I really want to jump in, but I think I should wait because something like it might be coming to me. It's like wanting to act, like wanting very badly to act, but it's not quite clear where you should go. So instead of burning yourself out doing nothing, essentially, like wait for some more clarity.
I like that. One of the things that I picked up on, I know that you already explained it, kind of what it meant to you, but like, this is my interpretation of your card that you created. So take it with a grain of salt. I almost feel like when you made that, you in some capacity felt like a piece of driftwood, like you were being pushed around by all of these other forces and that you didn't have creative potential. Then you washed up on the shore, like taking this sabbatical in your life to really understand where you wanted to go and then waiting for the right moment. Does that make sense?
It sure does. It is very, very true. Yeah, when that card is, I was living somewhere that I just decided to move to, and I was like renting a room in a house, and I was living on the beach, and I didn't know anybody. I had no friends. I was in a terrible living situation, and I had no idea what I was doing with my life. I was just waiting for the universe to kind of come and like basically a bolt of lightning to hit that driftwood and set it on fire again. I knew I wanted to do something. I just didn't know what.
I think anybody listening should be able to relate to that in some capacity where you know something needs to change. You don't know what you need to change or how you need to change it or what you need to do differently, but you're just kind of in this indecisive state. I almost said stalemate. But yeah, I think that that's a very relatable position to be in if people are being honest with themselves.
How do you feel about the Three of Wands?
I'll show you the one from the deck that I use, and it has this woman kind of sitting up high, making this dude really work for her attention.
Interesting.
Yeah. So looking at it in this deck specifically, especially with hearing the overeager concept and then tying it to my personal journey, it would be about this person really trying to impress upon somebody their own value, especially tying it into the three, them not knowing their value and being so willing to show their value to other people. So creating this deficiency. And that's just for this deck specifically. The way that I would normally read it from Rider Smith Waite or whatever is the unlimited field of creative potential, really, because I see it as this open, vast field that you can do whatever you want with it. And there's also the yellow, again, ties into sense of self because of the navel chakra. Mm-hmm. And that's really about what will you create? What do you want to will into existence? Because you have the capacity to do so.
I like that a lot. What's interesting about your card, it almost looks like you have to also remember that the threes are all lower octaves of the Empress. So we have to ask ourselves, what does the Empress have to say when these minor cards show up? And in yours, it almost looks like you've got this, this character, which happens to be a man, doing all of this work to get to what appears to be the woman was the Empress saying, and she's saying, all you have to do is be open to receiving it and things come to you. You don't have to work so hard to prove your actions.
I think that's a really good perspective on it. And then really tying it into modern culture. And again, using masculinity as like an expansive term, not associating with gender, but the concept of toxic masculinity is almost because of overaction.
Yes.
Overdoing. It's not about this passive confidence, I guess. So that's a really good perspective that you touched on there. And like using it to dismantle our cultural zeitgeist.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it really is. And then looking at it through the lens of the woman, she's really sitting there in her power too and saying, show up how I want you or don't show up at all.
Right. Like she knows she has, she's got that high priestess and magician and fool quality, and she's already at the top. Mm-hmm. She got there by trusting in her instincts and her gut and her knowing and her like that trust in the universe. And so she's reached the top, whereas the figure that's going, in their masculine outward driven forces is pushing really hard and struggling when they could have just followed their intuition and allowed.
Yeah. One last thing on this card, because I really like breaking it down with you. There's that green in there, and it's like she's really rooted in her heart too, like her love of self. Yeah. And that's definitely essential to any kind of personal development or getting what you want. Yeah. Okay.
That's the animal that's with them.
That is a jaguar or a leopard. It's some kind of big cat. I don't know my zoo animals.
That's okay. I just think it's interesting. A lot of times in the tarot, when animals appear, and in any type of mythology, like the animals are typically extensions of our intuition. And I feel like the animal doesn't look like it's struggling as much as the man.
I like that aspect of it. When you touched on the animal and brought up that whole concept too and pointed it out, the way that I took it is that there's kind of his quickness and his rush to get her attention is what's creating all the struggle. So his rush for it is what's creating the struggle. But I also like how you pointed out that the animal isn't struggling so much. And to me, that kind of taps into the aspect of the animal is acting on instinct, and it's acting more so from the space of this is what I need to do rather than this is what I really want. So it's less from desire and more from action, I guess.
Yes. And also, I feel like the animals are also symbolic of evolution.
Hmm.
Where
Explain that further.
the animal is climbing up that wall towards our Empress figure because it's the evolution is the driving force. The instinctual survival mode is the driving force, whereas the man is possibly the human and ego force. He's forgotten and is separate from his intuition and his evolution.
Well put.
Yeah.
Mind blown.
You posted on Instagram that picture. You made like a meme out of it, but I like really looked at it and I was like, oh, this is so interesting. And I didn't realize which card it was because I'm not familiar with that deck. It didn't jump out to me as being Three of Wands. I just took it from just the pure artist form of it and broke it down into like you've got masculine and feminine, and then you've got the evolution and animal.
Yeah, I really like your perspective on it. One of the things that I've got from just kind of breaking it down and chatting with you too, and I never noticed this before, even though it's incredibly obvious. So there's the three aspects there, and it kind of goes back to the point of this main principle and then the breaking down of the principle into these two other channels. I don't know.
Definitely. I mean, that's another thing to touch on with threes. Three is a huge number in every type of religion. I mean, in paganism, you've got like the triple goddess, you've got like the maiden, mother, crone, and in Christianity it's like the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. It's like Trinity is a huge, and triangles and the three sides is, I mean, you could just go on and on and on and on and on. There's no ceiling to symbolism. Which, on another offshoot and tangent, which I will wrap up quickly, tarot is a way to engage with your creativity. Just taking a look at symbolism, whether you're doing this with somebody else or on your own, is a form of art therapy.
I forget who if it was a therapist or who it was specifically, and I'm curious if you've heard this concept of looking at the cards and then envisioning yourself in the cards and then picturing the scene playing out as if you're in there and like seeing what's kind of behind the frame of the card. Have you heard of that concept before?
Yes.
What, have you done it before?
That was when I studied, I did like a 6-month deep, intense tarot, which is kind of like where the concept of this formula came up from. And they would say each week we would like look at the card and we would say like what else is in there, like go into that and like embody the character and what else is around. Also there's a whole tarot deck that shows the behind. Have you seen that deck?
No, I haven't.
So each card is like they flipped it around, so you're standing behind the figure and it shows you what's going on behind the scenes.
In my mind, I'm going to tell you the first thought that came up with to my mind. Like for the Empress, I pictured her having like a bong behind her or something. Like I don't know why my mind goes. She's like hiding the fact that she's stoned.
That's funny. I feel like she doesn't give any fucks. I feel like she wouldn't hide it.
Yeah, maybe the police are by. I don't know. We don't know what's in front of her. So,
you don't.
I'm just being difficult now. Yeah, I'm curious to see that deck. I really like to see what that person's perspective is. Is it based in the Rider-Waite-Smith art form or art style rather? Yeah. I'll have to look for it. So, are you ready to move on to the Three of Pentacles?
Yes.
Kick us down with your divine tarot wisdom, your tarot tidbits.
You're killing me.
Have an effect on people.
Okay, so my image is pretty simple in the Moon Void Tarot. It's a door with 3 pentacles on it. From my understanding, the Three of Pentacles to me is a lot about having the courage to show up in community where you feel like you've now tapped into your divine source. And you have something that you want to share with the rest of the group, but you're maybe a little nervous or hesitant. And so I always say when this card comes up, like we spoke of earlier, there's room for everybody, and things really come together when you can collectively bring your area of expertise. So don't be shy about trying something new or engaging with a new group.
I think that's very important. Yeah, the world needs you is really what it comes down to. The world needs you to step into your gift. And if you want to make the world a better place, own up, get your side of the street clean, and start showing up and then sharing what you've learned and what you've cultivated in your personal experience, because you have your own individual experience that can help other people in ways that nobody else can. You're specifically tailored to help certain people, and playing small does yourself and a lot of other people a great disservice.
Absolutely.
What does the Three of Pentacles look like in this Rider-Smith way? I don't have my deck handy. Okay, that's right.
Yeah, so it's the group of people that are, it almost looks like they're going over plans, like they're architects.
See, the way that I perceive that card always, and I like the way that you perceive it, because that makes a lot of sense, like discussing the plan of how they're going to construct what they're doing. I always took it as people coming together and kind of connecting with God or the universe or whatever you want to call it. Like, I always viewed it as like a church scene. But I guess they're not mutually exclusive. They could be architects in a church kind of looking at building up this spiritual concept or whatever.
Right. I mean, if you wanted to look at it, like we've all, like, so many people have had spiritual awakenings in the past few years. And the more we come together and discuss it, the more we're building a new paradigm of what spirituality is, aside from old ways where it was a church.
Yeah, it's more kind of hands-on, user-based, and your own personal experience. So it's more grounded in mysticism and your all-access pass that you don't need any intermediaries, and you can kind of share your own wisdom.
Right, kind of like what we're doing. Like, I would say you and I coming together to do this tarot podcast would be like a Three of Pentacles moment. It would be like you and I plus like the listeners.
So you're part of this, listeners.
Yeah, they're the yes, absolutely.
We couldn't do this without you. So you're an essential part. Now get involved and step up and step into your own role. Pass the wisdom on. Exactly. No, I like that. That's a very good point. How important it is to do this and then allow other people the same opportunity to step into that that role. So back to the Moon Void Tarot. You have it on the door. That's kind of the ability to create and open up these new doors and expand new horizons, expand your horizons based upon what you create, but then also having the unknowingness of what's behind the door, but still showing up and doing it anyhow, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, very cool. So I'm going to show you this one. Dude with his bongos by the beach and three little crabs. To me, it really is just kind of about disconnecting from the larger thing, like scene of things, and then tapping into how I perceive the other one as like very spiritual in nature. And tying it, I guess, now with your architecture concept, because they do focus on the buildings there, constructing your own intuitive, mystic, spiritual experience, and finding your own harmony and rhythm. Like I always talk about this card being about finding your rhythm in life. And then to me, that would be about like diving into the Tao or whatever you want to call it, being in harmony with the universe, and then understanding that we are the only thing that separates us from actual connection with the universe. Like there's nothing else that does. It's us. Yeah. What do you pick up from this?
No, I agree with you.
I've paid her to say that, everybody. No.
Well, because it's got, the man is sitting on, he's grounded, obviously, but the water's all around. So it's coming to him. There is a receptivity and an openness when he engages in his creativity, then the universe opens up to him.
Yeah, I really like that as well. Tying into the grounded aspect and the water being there too. It's like he's grounded and he can face his emotions, and he can filter the world through his emotions without being controlled by them, and understand like where he's at with everything.
Exactly. And like when he plays the music and the crabs come, it's like it's like the community comes to him in a way that he wouldn't normally have thought, like this would, I guess you're like the music that he made when he engaged with his creativity brought forth unexpected things, again, animals being representative of our intuition and our evolution.
Yeah, I really like that.
Moving the needle forward in his own spiritual evolution in his human form by engaging with creativity.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned the creativity aspect too of it, because the crabs are orange, and that's sacral chakra, which is all about creativity and sexual energy. And then his shirt is actually green, so it's kind of about by getting in the rhythm with his heart, creating from that space, he's able to tap into his intuition and kind of view his emotions in this grounded sense. Yeah. Wow, we really dissected that with like a scalpel and broke it down. I don't know why I'm getting so gruesome with it. So real quick, are you ready to recap everything? Do you have anything else that you want to throw out there?
No, I think we dived deep into these.
Okay, so what is your recap for the Empress?
Oops, sorry. The Empress is divine feminine receptive energy. It's creation. There's an element of being in touch with your sexuality, owning who you are, and self-acceptance.
One thing too that I want to maybe expand a little bit more on before we dive into the pips. We had mentioned that it was a Empress year. What does that really mean again? Like real quick, can we touch on that?
The Empress year is about creation, and it's about self-expression and personal power, but it's also about allowing things to come to you when you are in your power. So you don't have to necessarily go out there and make a bunch of crazy moves to get something to happen. All you have to do is be yourself, and the universe puts those things in your, it kind of, everything is in a state of flow.
Well said. I dig it. Okay, and then for the bullet points for the pips or the minors, I have 3 is all about communication. Does that resonate with you, or how do you want to expand upon that?
The 3 is about the stories that we've internalized that keep us small, keep us in our pain, and being able to use the tools that we have through our spirituality to change that story and to heal from it.
I like that. So 3 of Swords is about heartbreak, separation, and grief. Is there anything else you want to add to that?
Again, just the healing from it.
Healing from it. Okay. And the ability to heal. Yeah, I think that's good too, to have like a redemption point to it. What about 3 of Wands? What do you pick up from that?
Creative expansion.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like the calm before the storm. Just like there's a little bit of waiting period in there.
Okay. I have preparation and foresight. Do those sit with you well?
Yes.
Okay. I gotta get the Stefanie Caponi seal of approval.
Okay.
Does so for 3 of cups, what do you come up with?
Spending your time with people that make you energized and fill your cup and not drain you, and also being mindful of the ways that you show up
Yeah.
in relationships.
Water seeks its own level.
Yes. So it's definitely a card of community and friendship, but also being very mindful of how you are showing up and who you're allowing into your space.
Those are the bullet points that I had: friendship and community. And then for Pentacles, I have teamwork and collaboration.
Yes.
How would you expand upon that?
Teamwork and collaboration can only happen when you are allowing yourself to engage and to show up in confidence.
I think that is a very important thing to underline, and this will be my last tangent because I think it's something that might give people a lot of benefit, and I'm curious of your perspective on it. Oftentimes, a lot of the problems that we face in collaboration aren't due to the other people. It's due to our own insecurities and how we're perceiving them, seeing us, and vice versa. So again, it goes to the concept that we create a lot of our own problems. How do you feel about that?
Exactly. I think that there's room for everybody, and everybody has their own special stuff that they would bring to the table. And the more you can engage with like-minded individuals, the more we can create something really spectacular.
That's a very empowering message. So thank you, Stefanie. Why don't you explain to everybody, if you would, what they can expect next week?
I'm really excited for next week, Ross. We did the Empress, which is about receiving. And next week is the Emperor, which is the counterpart, the masculine energy, again, not gendered, but just that outward directed activity, which I think is interesting because it goes along and corresponds with the 4s. And the 4s are about building structure and stability. So a lot of times there's, toxic masculine energy, and then there's constructive masculine energy, which every person on the planet has. So we're going to work with how to engage with constructive masculine energy.
Yeah, I'm excited about it too, to hear about the perspective and dive into all of those other cards as well. Just to remind everybody, if you want to reach out to us to ask us questions or to get involved, give us comments, you can either contact Stefanie or myself through Instagram. You can send me an email at staff@spiritualphoenixstudios.com. The information will be below. And if you're intrigued by Stefanie's Moon Void Tarot deck, you can get it at moonvoidtarot.com. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. And thank you, Stefanie.
Thank you so much, Ross. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for listening. If you love this show, one kind review goes a long way. If you have a question or comment you'd like read on air, please send your email to staff@spiritualphoenixstudios.com or use the link in the show notes.